Here we have the Quiero Organic White Field Blend from La Mancha in central Spain.
Absolutely, Castilla-La Mancha, big region in the centre of Spain. Slightly elevated, quite high altitude, but really we're talking about central, hot Spain. I was browsing, flicking through social media the other night, and I've got a lot of wine stuff on my social media, as you can imagine. There was a guy absolutely ripping La Mancha as like the dustbin of Spain and the quality of wine. Really frustrating, actually, to hear that sort of snobby, on my high horse point of view. This is the centre of Spanish winemaking. This is proper rural Spain. You don't go on holiday there. It's not touristy. This is rural, rugged, farming, agriculture, real Spain. They've been making wine for a very, very, very long time for families and generations to drink. They know what they're doing. And the suggestion that the quality is low because they're not famous or have a particularly well-known name or, a cutting edge is insanity. And field blends in particular is super popular there. We've talked about field blends before, but yeah, cultivating lots and lots of different grape varieties. These are guys that probably had those vines planted 3 generations ago. They don't know what they are anymore. They just don't know they're grapes, and they pull them in when they're good, and they make wine, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, super easy drinking. We've had this before with field blends. There's a reason blending makes a good wine, because you get, the good bits of a few different things. Super duper tasty. And obviously, this is an organic wine as well. We've got a few organics through the site. Vegan wines don't necessarily always mean organic. Nope. So what is organic when it comes to wine making then?
Yeah, so organic, ultimately, it's going to be about chemicals and pesticides. We're talking about farming here, and any type of farming has its issues when it might come to bugs and insects or rot or mildew, particularly winemaking done near coastal areas or damper areas will have rot and mildew that they'll want to use chemical pesticides against. And then in hotter areas where the ground, the landscape in these types of areas is quite arid. And so when the wildlife of that area see bushes with a load of fruit on, they're in there. They're in there like a shot because, there's not a lot of that around, and they basically see it as a free buffet. So there'll be chemical pesticides to put those guys off. When you're operating organically, you can't do that. And what do you do instead? Well, you can make organic fertilizers and that sort of thing, and that tends to involve holistic farming. So for example, you'll be a winemaker, but you also might have sheep and cows and stuff like that. You'll let the sheep and the cows eat all the weeds and the grass that grows around your vines to clear the soil so that they can flourish, but you also let them shit there as well. And that's just natural organic fertilizer for the vines to grow on. In terms of like pesticides, if you're not going to use chemicals to get rid of certain insect that's chewing onto your berries, then what do? Well, actually, you have to look to plant indigenous species. And what a lot of these organic farmers do is, centuries ago, their ancestors, not knowing any better, ripped up indigenous plant life and trees and bushes to plant the vines. And they didn't know any better in the time. Now we're planting them back. And it turns out if you put an indigenous shrub or bush back where it belongs, the bugs turn around and go, oh yeah, we like that stuff. We don't eat grapes. Yeah. We like that stuff. And they go back to their more indigenous diet. And it's as simple as that. It's a really simple solution. But if you want to operate organically, it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to use special fertilizers and stuff like that. It's actually going back to maybe a little bit more of a natural approach. And that's why a lot of winemakers operate organically already, but they don't have the certification. And the certification costs quite a lot of money, but a lot of winemakers will not bother with the certification, but they still do the practices.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why buying from someone like us, where we know the winemaker, we know their process, we can tell you someone's operating organically, even if they don't have that label to put on the bottle. But these guys are obviously they've got all the certificates, they've done it properly, and there's that kind of, you were talking about planting of indigenous species. There's a whole other movement beyond just organic called biodynamic, isn't there? Which is where that goes to the nth degree.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if that's what you're, if you're really into that, take a look out for kind of biodynamics. Some of it can get pretty funky fresh.
Yeah, biodynamics is weird. They incorporate loads of that stuff I'm talking about, like that sort of circle of life thing. Everything within the vineyard takes care of itself. We take care of the wildlife and that they take care of the soil. But there's also stuff like if the moon is waxing, then the wine will taste more full-bodied, and if you bury a cow's horn in the ground, it will taste more acidic. So, you know, bit mumbo jumbo, but you know, but yeah, if you want wine that's organic plus biodynamic is a good one to look at.
Awesome. Well, look, you know, I think from a food perspective, you know, like so many of these cracking Spanish numbers, it is an all-rounder. There's a reason that like tapas, tomato-y, kind of, you know, some with a bit of spice, some with a bit of oil, is you know, that kind of national food of Spain. This is an all-rounder, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, an all-rounder for sure. You know, we're talking the hottest part of Spain here, so it's got body, it's got guts. It's not your average like Sauvignon Blanc high acidity that only really can deal with lighter foods, oily foods. You know, those Mediterranean vegetables, that sort of thing. Something with a bit of guts to it, 100%.
Very good. Well, look, I'm looking forward to it.
Cheers.